We're going to begin. Hello, my name is Vincent Salucci. I work for the TU Delft Library, and I'm co-sponsor of this event. It's with our partner DUIS, the Delft Women in Science Network, represented by Astrid Tull, who's going to speak in a moment. She brought my attention to this documentary over the course of the past year, and I've watched it a few times since, and so we collaborated to make it available to the TU Delft community, and we think this is worth discussing, particularly at a STEM university. And so we started hatching plans about a year ago, and of course Corona foiled them to some extent. We would love to have you all in the library, and I owe DUIS and all the women faculty a party and events in the library. So hold me to that next year. Hopefully we can all get together there, because I think it's worth celebrating International Women and Girls Day of Science, which was in February. And then also this is Women's History Month in March, and we had Women's Day on the 8th. And so we've designed a program at the library for women in science. This is consisted of two online exhibitions, one organized in tandem with our heritage team on the history of first-year female students at TU Delft, and that's titled Novices. And then also I did one with the help of the DUIS Network and Astrid, titled Voices of Women in Science, which features 17 current female researchers, and also it features their research and introducing them by their intelligence and their intellectual endeavors, but also giving them words of wisdom and sharing advice and mentoring to further female students and current students to prevent this leaking pipeline that we'll discuss a little bit more here in a little bit. We also had a student pub quiz on the history of women in science and some diversity terms. We had a poetry club featuring a fantastic female poet, and she was reading poems, and the students wrote poems on the theme of equality. And we also wanted to plug some other collaborators. There's so many events going on this month regarding this theme, but NWO has an Inside Out program that comes up on the 22nd. And so I wanted to plug that too. That said, I just want to welcome you today, and I'll turn it over to Astrid and DUIS and our panels.
So welcome everybody. I'm very excited that we have 72 participants now. So that's wonderful that many people are finding this topic important. I'm coordinator of DEWIS, Delft Women in Science. It's the women's network of scientists at TU Delft. And our mission is to help TU Delft to attract more women and create an inclusive, safe environment that makes women want to stay and give them opportunity to grow and flourish in their careers. And although diversity is an aspect of is about all aspects in which people differ, the film and the discussion focuses on gender. And in the film, female scientists tell their story about their career path in academia and the challenges they faced. And the film aims to raise visibility around critical issues of diversity, equity and inclusion in science. And so I'm happy that all of you are here for the discussion and about how to make science more inclusive. I would like to introduce you to our moderator, Valeria Garben, I hope I say it good. Valeria Garben did she did a master's in physics, and she did her PhD at the University of Trieste in Italy. She was a Rubicon Fellow in Physics of Fluids group at the University of Twente, and a postdoc researcher at the University of Pennsylvania, before starting her research group at Imperial College London in 2012. She joined the Department of Chemical Engineering at TU Delft in 2019 as an associate professor. Valeria has been awarded as an ERC starting grant, was the 2018 recipient of the McBain Medal, and the 2020 recipient of the Soft Matter Lectureship. Valeria's expertise is in transport phenomena in soft and biological matter applied to biomedical flows, advanced materials, sustainable processes and products. And yeah, I'm very happy to have you, Valeria, and thank you for being our moderator.
Thank you, Astrid, for the introduction. Maybe I would like to mention something else about my experience. Back in my 7 years at Imperial College London, I was on the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion working group or committee of the college, and I've had several interactions with different working groups that were designing programs to improve representation of women in different faculties and departments. And I'm really excited now to take part into the initiatives that are going on here at TU Delft. And that's why I got in touch with Astrid and Davis. And when Astrid invited me to be the moderator for this event, I was really happy to do it. And then I watched the movie, and I was even more excited to start a discussion on that topic. So Astrid and Vincent have assembled a fantastic panel with many of our colleagues that I'm going to introduce now. You see here the names of our panelists on the screen. We have the pleasure of having David Keyson joining the panel. He is Antonie van Leeuwenhoek Professor in Smart Products and Environments at the Faculty of Industrial Design Engineering. And in September 2020, he was appointed as Diversity Officer. If you want to know a bit about his research area, it is in sustainable living and work with the aim to foster well-being combined with energy and CO2 reduction in the built environment. Over the past decade, he has led multiple European and NGO projects and is active in the climate knowledge innovation community. But today we are going to really ask you to wear your hat as our diversity officer, and you can expect some grilling from us, I think. Then we have Sam Vijlbrief. Hello, Sam. Sam is a master's student in transport infrastructure and logistics. This year, he serves as full-time member of the Central Student Council on behalf of LICE Beta. And one of his portfolios for this year is diversity and inclusion, which he thinks is a very important subject that deserves more attention at TU Delft and beyond. Welcome, Sam. We are very curious to hear your inputs. Then the third panel member is Elif Ozcan Vieria. She is an associate professor of sound-driven design and research at the Faculty of Industrial Design Engineering. She works in the field of sound-driven design, focusing on medical innovation to focus on personal needs and values such as pleasure, dignity, sense of achievement, and mental health. She has worked with Toyota Motors Europe and the European Space Agency on the topic of designing human-centered alarms for complex systems, and she's currently partnered with Erasmus Medical Center Rotterdam to study the concept of a silent intensive care unit. It is a very fascinating topic, and we're also curious to hear about your experiences as a woman academic. Next in our list is Sophia Luxo. Sophia is a professor, smart energy systems in the faculty TPM, and a board member of Davis. She received her PhD from the Technical University of Eindhoven, the Eindhoven University of Technology. And since 1995, she has been working at the Faculty of Technology Policy and Management here at TU Delft. She is a full professor in the Energy and Industry Group, concentrating on a wide range of problems on how complex socio-technical systems are functioning today and can be reshaped for the sustainable future. Welcome, Sophia. And last but not least, we have Laura Marchal Crespo, who is an associate professor at the Department of Cognitive Robotics in the faculty 3ME. She is also affiliated with the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Bern in Switzerland. Laura obtained her master and PhD degrees from the University of California at Irvine in the US, studying how robots and virtual reality can be employed to improve neurorehabilitation. Welcome, everyone. I would like to kick off the discussion maybe by asking Vincent if we can play a quick opening clip from the documentary film Picture a Scientist, on which our discussion will be based. If there are any technical hiccups, maybe I can already start asking some questions. Vincent, what do you say?
I'm working on it. Are we seeing?
We are ready for the clip. Thank you.
Do we have sound?
No sound.
One moment. Let's do that one more time with the sound.
When you ask somebody, draw a picture of a scientist, it used to be all men.
We were just trying to be scientists. We certainly didn't want to be seen as troublemakers or activists.
The big picture is that women are extraordinarily underrepresented in science.
Uh-oh, I thought we might have a few buffering problems. I think maybe we should use that as a cue to work on buffering the next clip.
Okay, so I'm going to kick off with the first reactions on this film. Who is it going to be? Sophia, can I ask you for your impressions? How did you feel after watching the film, and did anything surprise you?
Thank you, Valeria. My first reaction after watching the film is that it made me very, very sad, because you see this so clearly that many women don't have sufficient chances to develop themselves in the academic environment, and at the same time they don't receive a sufficient amount of respect for the things they did. And this is, of course, a very, very sad news. By having this in mind, and I guess we will further on discuss this, I also made a short experiment. I asked people with children from my bubble, ask your grandchildren or children to picture a scientist, but please don't say that I am asking this. And what was the answer? Many of the children give me a picture, I don't have it, but I can show to you, and women being a scientist. And I was discussing this with them later on, and I guess because they see me, professor, sometimes you talk about this, so they have a role model, and you see that this is influencing enormously. So in main bubble, I get more pictures with a woman as a scientist. And that was very, very hopeful for me, and maybe to all of us. So it is from one side a very, very sad film, but if you look maybe further and discuss with others, it can give us sufficient hope that in the future, this type of films are totally not needed. That is my reaction.
Thank you, Sophia. I find it very encouraging, the result of this experiment that you reported. It also tells us that the initiatives aimed at just increasing representation of underrepresented groups does have the effect that we hope to improve the, well, not improve, but to make it visible to
change
the next generation that it is possible. Can I just pass the mic on to maybe Laura?
I share my feelings also with Sophia. The movie also made me feel very sad, but at the same time, it made me feel with hope because what I witnessed was 3 women that succeed into fighting the system. And yeah, it was a lot of work. Sometimes they were asking themselves if it was a waste of time, but as a result, it was a better world. So a better world for future generation of female researchers who want to join this career. Somehow, also I was wondering myself if maybe the film was very negative in the sense that it was making us very sad. And if somehow by presenting this very negative vision of research also is going to prevent young female researchers to join us, that this is actually what we want, right? We want more female into the research. And now one of the main reasons I wanted to join this panel is because actually I feel so happy, and this work makes me so fulfilled, right? So also to show that there is also a female researcher who really enjoy this. We also encounter struggles, but actually the joys overpass the challenges. And because previous women that have been in the situations of pain and sadness fight so far, so much, now we are preparing a better world for future generations.
Thank you very much, Laura. Elif, can we have your opinion or your impressions? How did you feel after watching this movie?
Yeah, I recognize many of the things that these female scientists talked about. So I share the sentiment of being sad, but I also felt nauseated to the fact that these things had to happen. And especially the situation of Jane Vijlbrief, and when her colleague, seeing all the harassment being done, but not recognizing this as harassment, I thought that's something that we really have to work on. We need ambassadors for diversity in science. We need to have these discussions. So thank you for Astrid and Vincent for organizing such debates. And we need awareness about these topics. We need to recognize the problem and act on it. It's not about bravery, but it is really correcting the situation. And very often people don't have the courage, or they just don't see it because they are not sensitive enough. So for me, that was the most impressive thing to do, that when a woman or someone being harassed to such a degree and not being recognized just because the woman was trying to be strong is not an excuse. So I think we have to work on that.
Thank you, Elif. Sam, can I ask you to comment on how this film made you feel, and if anything maybe was surprising to you?
Yes, good that you used the word surprising, because I think there were some things, like I've also heard of these big cases, of course, like the top of the iceberg, as I mentioned in the movie. But the bottom of the iceberg was really what kind of surprised me, because there's so many little things and so many things that you can do, also unintentionally, that lead to this very structural way of mistreating women in science. And I was like, wow, you really have to start thinking about this actively, that there's all these little things which you have to watch out for, which can happen also if you don't intend it. But there's also a lot of people who do it intentionally. And, you know, I'm not a woman, nor am I in science yet. So for me, it's kind of looking at it from the outside. And I really try hard to, you know, recognize these things and not do them myself. And I would hope if I were in a situation where I go to Antarctica, like happened to Jane, that you would recognize that. But also the little things are very hard to recognize. And I see there's a very structural problem that must be addressed. Also, as what's her name, Nancy Hopkins, I think, at MIT showed that there's like she actually calculated what the difference was in floor space. And I was amazed that it was that big. Like you kind of expected, you know, that there's this difference because for some reason that happens, but that it's so big and so structural between men and women, that was really surprising to me. And I always get really upset when people don't react to that positively. So you had the director there who just said, you know, I'm not going to look at this. And that's the kind of reaction that you really don't need. At least always listen and try to see what the problems are and recognize that they're there, and not just swipe them away because you don't think it's a problem or don't care. So I think, yeah, there's definitely still a lot to do before you really get to the equality that you want. Yeah, those were my initial thoughts.
Thank you, Sam. And yeah, quite interesting that you mentioned this kind of symbolic example of lab space that, of course, applies to a range of other opportunities like salary gap and other things. David, your turn.
Yeah, I think there's, for me, what's really interesting was MIT has some parallels with the TU Delft as a technical university. And what I found inspiring was also the approach that Nancy Hopkins took of really, like Sam mentioned, making calculations and coming up with data. That's something we're working on now. We'll have very shortly a portal online for the whole world to see, where you can see all the faculties and across functions, number of women. And I think at Technical University, I think data really helps people create awareness and understanding. And I know there's a lot of other issues at hand beyond the sheer numbers about latent discrimination and sexual harassment, a lot of factors, which I found familiar in the film. But I do think in a scientific community like the TU Delft, we can also take a somewhat scientific approach to changing some of the culture and attitudes. And also, I think really it's about organizational change, and it's really about creating systematic change. So really bringing organizations like Davis into the main body of the TU Delft and really making it mainstream. And it just becomes a natural way of working. Yes.
Thank you very much. I think now we could potentially watch another short clip to further foster the discussion. Yes, it's coming. I'm sure we've all been in enough online lectures and online conferences to know that these small glitches happen and are part of the
sexual harassment. What's gotten most of the attention is unwanted sexual attention, coercion. Those are in the public eye, and I think everyone would agree we absolutely need to address those.
And then you have all the stuff that's underneath. Those are actually more than 90% of the sexual harassment. You know, the subtle exclusions, being left off an email, not being invited to a collaboration where you're the clear expert. Just these little moments that make a woman feel like she doesn't belong. That's a really common experience.
Looks like the technology is determining the length of the clip today.
Working fine. That was a perfectly good time to stop. So yes, we have all these extremely visible events that everybody is very aware of and very careful to handle. And then we have all these invisible, huge variety of small actions or lacks of actions that can have overall taken together still a very big effect on the representation, not only of women, of course, but also other underrepresented groups that we will, that topic we will touch upon a bit later. Does one of the female professors in the panel want to kick off some discussion on the hidden part of the iceberg, maybe sharing an experience or sharing some tips for colleagues? Sophia, floor is yours.
Maybe I can share my experience. All the time I was thinking about myself that the gender issue don't play any role in my behavior. So I try to give equal opportunity to everybody. And maybe it is interesting also to mention that in my group, I am head of the group with 4 professors. 3 of them are female. We have a lot of female assistant associate professors, so and with different nationalities, you can say everything is going perfectly there. The perfect group to be used as an example of diversity of the university. But I prepared an application text for the new professor by me in the group, and it is normally going through a screen if the text is women friendly. And I get it back. It was written by me, and I get it back. It was not adequately formulated in such a way that we can expect that the women will react on it. And you see, it was for me very, very clear. We very often think that we act properly, but we actually don't do this. We have a clear bias. Also, those who are, really with warm heart for the diversity. So that is, I will say, the message to everybody: be really aware. It is not so easy as maybe it looks like. How to change this? I don't know. I don't have a clear recipe, but I think we need all together work on the cultural change, maybe having workshops or the exercises, how to becoming aware about your own shortcomings and how to change the culture. David said that his objective is to change the culture of the university, the scientific approach for changing the culture. It sounds very, very good, but I also know that changing a culture, that is a process of many, many years. Sometimes 40, 50, 100 years we need to change the culture. So we need to be prepared that the process is a long-term process, but I guess step by step we can get there where we would like to be. And be aware about your own habits, I will say.
Thank you, Sophia. This is a very, very interesting point about our own biases towards each other that we will actually go back to later, because we have another clip on exactly that from the film. I would also like to hear Laura's input on the hidden part of the iceberg, let's say.
Yeah, so when I watched the movie and I saw this hidden part of the iceberg, I think that I could put a tick in all of the things that were lower of the water. So this is not the first time I saw this, but it was shown to me by somebody else when I encountered problems in my career. So this is something that is actually hidden to ourselves. And actually somehow you deny that it exists. I don't know if it's a way of surviving or what, but somehow you deny the existence. So I find really good that the film brought it so that you could see clearly it's in there. And yeah, don't look somewhere else because once you recognize there is a problem, then and you know where is the problem, then it's the only situation where you can somehow solve the problem, right? First recognizing and then trying to tackle it. So it was my female colleagues, the ones who drove me to this conclusion of it exists, right? It's not in your imagination, it's a reality.
Yes, Elif.
I totally recognize what Laura is saying. Maybe it's so systemic that sometimes I don't know if something is just happening to me, or is it me because I'm a woman, or and I think especially people in power positions, they play this card so well that it often looks like this would have been the same decision for someone else too, for a male, researcher as well. So I find it very, very difficult to identify when is it a female issue and when is it something personal that you are not actually there yet, as a scientist. So that's something that we can all expect, that maybe we don't get the grant because we haven't written something that's so compelling, but sometimes you don't know if it is because you're female or if it is. So it's very, I think one of the solutions might be is to have these people in power positions to be completely sensitive to these issues, like what Sophia was saying, that of course she's aware of it and it still is very difficult to do the right thing. So what do we do? Do we train or do we have, I know that there were like harassment trainings for all the associate and full professors in our university, but it just happened once after, I think, Me Too movement, and that was it. So the issue is not covered just because you swept one, in one moment of time, a couple of professors, they got the lecture and then they immediately become very politically correct, right? So I would like to see better management, that people who are actually, as I said, ambassadors to these issues. But I also have something good. Can I mention that too? So I finished the course, first year course. I'm talking about students who are about 18 years old. And I got 2 emails from one male, one female student, reflecting on the diversity of the team that I had. So there are a series of lectures, and they wanted to see more diversity in those amongst those lecturers. And I explained that, the whole course is actually, I worked really hard, like Sophia, to make sure the team is 50% male or female. Then we have colleagues that identify themselves as gay within the community. We have people from different ethnicities, from Asia, from Turkey, from Portugal. So I was trying to explain, but they said, but they're all very hidden. We want the lecturers who are really in the spotlight to be females of different ethnicity, because we want to be encouraged. We want to identify ourselves within that community, that we want to have these role models. And I thought, I think the future generation is quite aware of these situations, and I think they will do a lot for us. And at the age of 18, when you demand this, imagine what you can do as a full professor and along the way. So that email was one of the best emails I have ever received from anyone. So wanted to share the awareness as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this very uplifting experience. So thank you for posting questions in the chat. Keep them coming. I will ask them in the appropriate times in the conversation. If you have questions, you can post them. And if you want to ask them in person to the panelists, you can also make a note of that. And I will give you the mic. First, I want to wrap up on this topic. I just want to ask to follow up with David on the topic of, yes, we can have these trainings on big issues like harassment. That is something that we all recognize, we all are aware is a big problem, and we can have a one-off training for all new staff and say, this is how it looks like, and these are the things that need to be done. But how about all these invisible actions or lack of action, like not giving equal opportunity in a way that is not very obvious, not giving the same level of visibility to male and female colleagues or group members or students? How can we take actions to change the culture at that submerged level of the iceberg?
Yeah, I think well, there's a lot of, I could probably talk an hour on this subject, but I think one of the things we have to change, which is really important, is the view on diversity. And I think some people think it's something we have to do because, of course, society is diverse, and we have also not only white people in the society, not only males, and etc., and not only certain people with certain orientations or limitations, whatever. But it's also about creating more power. And I mean, there's a lot of research on this also in companies and industry, and that by having more diverse teams, you're able to increase the power and the academic quality and productivity, whatever, of the group. And it's also about creating more science, really looking at gendered innovations. And so really understanding what gender means for our innovation and for our creativity. And I think one way we can change some of these underlying latent kind of discriminatory views and on is educating people about the value of diversity, and not just something you have to do. No, it's good for your own science. It's good for you as a researcher. And I think if we can get that message across through diverse activities, efforts, we'll come a long ways. I just wanted to pick up on the question in the chat about quotas. I think a really nice example is Erasmus University. 2 years ago, they had 14% female professors. It's not published yet, but they're now at 25% in 2 years. They have they've invested €3 million per budget for their D&I team at the university there. And they put a lot of effort into awareness, campaigning without quotas. And they've really changed the numbers, at least on that level. We have to do a lot also at our university, not only on the professor level, also on the associate professor level. We have very few associate professors on campus, very few. I think we have like 37 total on the whole campus. So it's not only about the professors, but I do think you can see within a short amount of time, at least in Erasmus, they were really able to change some of the figures and numbers and really create meaningful change by promoting excellent women in science. But it also means we have to take care of our associate professor pool, because if that's too small, we can't promote the full professor either. So it's looking at the whole chain. So yeah, there's a lot of things we can do to change attitudes and culture, but I really want to try to push the positive in short.
Can we also have Sam's opinion on this, and then we'll yes, Sophia, we will get to you in a moment. Let's hear some.
A little bit happy to react on the quota, because time ago I was asked to advise our board of the university regarding the quota for the female professors at the university. And I was requested to give such an advice because I am, as you know, the board member of Davis. And it was not so easy exercise to me, because actually I was expected to give a number, and I am against a number. And the same maybe way as David, you, I proposed not to give numbers, maybe the numbers that will be the outcome of the answer we would like to have to be best in class. So I think we as a university should be best in class regarding the diversity, gender, and related issue. If we will formulate this as an objective to us, it will be easier to go to the numbers. By what happens, actually, we are requested to give reasonable numbers. Finally, we ended with 15%. That is only for the female professor. For me, that was actually worst in class answer. So if we would like to change these societies, would like to change our university, our groups, I will say we need to get in mind of all of us that we would like to be best in class. And if we can do this, and maybe in a similar way as it happened in the university in Rotterdam at Erasmus, we'll get more and more numbers. The goal is not having 15% and not 17%. The goal should be, we would like to be best in class. And I hope, David, you are behind me with this.
100%.
Not behind before me, of course. Yeah, sorry about that. We are together for being best in class among technical universities in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so just to briefly, what we're doing now, we're putting together a diversity board, and there'll be at every faculty a diversity officer, and also Davis will be in the board, and True You and other organizations, student council. So we're getting that going. The letters are going out now. And I've spoken to all the deans. We have a lot of support from all the faculties for this. So we're creating a very strong, I think, team where we can get a lot more done than we did in the past.
That all sounds great. Thank you, Sophia, for mentioning the concept of best in class and highlighting the fact that setting a certain quota or number can be perceived as compromising on something when it doesn't have to be that way at all. So before we move on to another topic, and we also start addressing all the many questions that are coming in from the chat, I wanted to give Sam an opportunity to comment on the hidden part of the iceberg, because that was actually one of the things you mentioned in your opening statement, that there are a lot of things that people are not really aware of that can actually cause exclusion or disadvantage.
Yeah, the one thing I want to react on is what David said is about education. I think there's a large role also in teaching people about it, like in our actual education at TU Delft, but also above that. In my bachelor's, I had a course called IT and Values, where one of the lectures was actually about, diversity in teams and how that leads to, like David explained, a better team and a better result. And the reaction was really kind of mellow in the classroom. I mean, it's computer science, so there's a lot of computer scientists, and they tend to react a bit mad to that. But I was like, wow, people actually need to be told this, that diversity is not just, something that we find important because we say it. No, it actually leads to better results in your end product. You actually need to have a diverse team to, take everything into account. And I think that's really what people at TU Delft react to. As soon as you talk about science, as soon as you talk about numbers, you show them like this has an effect. This isn't just something we want. This actually is better for the science itself. And I think that's something we could do a lot more within education as well, to show students who are a bit more critical, because of course there's lots of students like the one who mailed you, Elif, like they care and they understand, but there's also a lot of students who don't see the problems yet. And that's also the bottom of the iceberg again. A lot of people don't realize this is a thing, who may also don't want to realize it, who are not open to, getting criticism, because we all make these mistakes, but we have to be open to the criticism we get and then try to improve on it. And I think the only way to do that is to teach people and to keep addressing these issues. And I think there's a large role for that in science education as well.
Thank you, Sam. I think there is a topic that is emerging from different questions in the chat regarding the increase in percentage of women, number of women, representation of women, beyond just the topic of quotes, which we already started discussing. There are questions about, is it sufficiently increase the number? High numbers increase diversity, but not necessarily inclusion, especially if these higher numbers are not in high positions. It also doesn't address the toxic work environment and doesn't mean that women or minorities in general will be retained. So there are many other questions coming in that we will address next. I would just like to maybe spend a few minutes with the panelists discussing what is a holistic approach to not only increasing numbers, but also changing the culture. At the same time, we've already heard some initiatives from David. Can I get some opinions maybe from Elif? Would you like to start?
How to systemically change the culture, is that the question, Valeria?
Yeah, so there are a number of questions and comments in the chat that discuss from different angles the effect of increasing numbers. Is it sufficient? Do we need to do something else? Increasing numbers will not be a long-term effect if there is no support, etc.
Yeah, one of the things about this increasing numbers that I am worried about, and when I talk to sometimes female professors, they identify themselves as being part of the boys' club, and they act like the boys' club, you know, that and I don't think that should also be the culture that we should be, you know, cultivating, or kind of the behavior that we should be cultivating. That if the success happens because you acted like a man in order to get to a certain position where normally men go, I think that is wrong. So maybe we could be embracing these female qualities. One of the things that I found surprising and also beautiful in the movie, these strong female scientists there, they dare to cry, they show their vulnerabilities, and they rise above it, you know. And I think what Sam was saying, all these simple things, little things, but maybe reflecting and acting on and avoiding or punishing the bad behavior, or avoiding the good one, will help us, change the culture. If we don't act in the moment, I have many regrets that I didn't act in the moment. And this movie kind of created this PTSD kind of reaction that why didn't I do this? It is important, we should. And some of the viewers or the audience is also saying we should have more. We shouldn't be mellow. We should be, you know, strong about this. So, and I think it's really culture. It all boils down to the fact that in our daily interactions, we really have to change our behavior, and we need to appreciate the good ones and highlight it and make it explicit in publicly, and I think kind of correct the other ones. So I wouldn't want female scientists to come to the top and act like one of the boys, and then, you know, create a toxic kind of environment for us. So that would be some of the fears that I would have. And that's why I would like to embrace femininity and the qualities that come with it, and make it also normal. You know, if I'm a mother, if I mean, look at MIT, that the female scientists were going away because there were no childcare facilities in the campus. And now in TU Delft we have it, and it's so beautiful. I felt so comfortable in those moments when I had my baby just 2 minutes away from my faculty. So yeah, just embrace the femininity and what comes with it, and just award the woman to come to the top with those qualities. So yeah.
Thank you. I would like to interrupt the ongoing discussion for a moment to ask a very important question that has been posted in the chat for David. There is a specific practical question about if a student happens to be the victim of sexual harassment at TU Delft, where can they address the situation and what help will they receive from the university? How well prepared is TU Delft to help students? Maybe if we can provide this information to our students now, that can help somebody in need in the future.
Yeah, so we are adding now to also to the it's already on the integrity for the integrity office website. There's already like a list of resources, and we'll also put those on the diversity and inclusion part of the website. But there's some of the same support resources that we have. There are resources at the TU Delft, counseling and different resources available to students. It's not well communicated, so it's now at least on the integrity part of the website, and we'll add it to the D&I website very shortly. At least we'll link back to that. So that's a problem in the communication. I think it's not adequate right now, the available resources. We take it very, of course, very seriously, and it's a tough issue to deal with because you have to deal with privacy aspects and things like that, and often people want to stay anonymous, so it's hard to, and they don't want to say who it was. So it's hard to deal with it. But what we also want to do is run, we're planning to run, we have now a diversity coordinator who also joined the team, which is helping us. We want to run inclusiveness surveys for students, also for staff on campus, to get more insights in where are these problems, in particular, which faculties is more of an issue than other faculties, where is it, or even at department level. So we need also more data to create a better plan of intervention. So we're actually missing facts right now as well. That's a big problem. There hasn't been much data collected, actually, as far as I can find, over the last couple of years. I don't think there's been any properly inclusiveness surveys done on campus. And so if I compare us to other universities, we're really behind on that. So it's an important point. The diversity office itself is not set up to provide counseling services. That's why we link to other services on campus. But we are here to create training program, help set up programs, training programs, working with outside, doing monitoring and developing policy. So an important, in terms of this panel discussion, important thing which we're also working on is a gender equality plan. We're required to have that ready for the EU, and also NVO subsidies will also be requesting in the future more diverse teams to get funding. And if we don't have our GEP plan ready in a year, we stand to lose 50 million euro as a university on funding from Horizon. So there's a lot of also financial pressure, which is good to work on that. And for each faculty, we should also have a gender equality plan. And part of that plan will also be dealing with issues relating to discrimination, how we handle those within the faculties themselves. So each faculty should have their own plan of approach to also managing these. And there should be like a person within the faculty who is objective and not biased in any way, who people could comfortably in a secure way talk with.
This is great to hear that there are all these initiatives. So if I can summarize the answer to the first question, that was, if a student is the victim of sexual harassment, will they receive support at TU Delft? The answer is yes, they will. And there is a process that is being developed to make that an anonymous process where the identity is not revealed, and the information will be more easily available to students. Did I misrepresent in any way what you said?
That's right. So if you look now on the Integrity Office web part of the website, you'll find there the links to different services, because also social integrity kind of relates back to D&I. So we're making those more available. So it's the communication department is working on this right now, this very item, making sure that all the links and available resources are well communicated on the website, so students and staff can easily find that information. Yeah.
Okay, Sam, would you like to add something with regards to support for students who may have experienced sexual harassment or are not sure if they have received sexual harassment, and they would like to know if their uncomfortable situation in which they have been is indeed harassment?
I don't have anything specific to add, but I hope indeed, like David said, the TU Delft has a proper places where you can report this. I know it's indeed not always the best and also hard to find in communication, but we work like very hard at the student council to improve communication around all of these things, to know, so people know where to reach out. And I think also as the diversity board develops and we start analyzing specific faculties, that will also create more awareness of this and more points to reach out. But indeed, it's communication is usually what the problem is, usually there is plenty of support.
Yeah, now we have a link in the chat from David.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So there are lots of questions in the chat. This is fantastic. We don't have enough time to address all these, but our panelists can also see them and maybe get back to individuals with more specific questions. There are many topics from the film on which we could continue, but there is one very provocative question in the chat that those of us who are involved in recruitment will have heard in many ways and forms, and I would like to pick up on this. A question to all panel, please, from Nakisa. Giving a position to a female candidate that has a low quality profile and everybody says she got the position because she's a woman, do you think it can be helpful for empowering women at the end? And the question is general for any positions in academia or industry. I think this also relates to the point that Sophia made earlier about moving away from quotas and towards a standard of excellence that will naturally include more women. So on this, I would like to pass the hot potato on to Laura.
Yeah, I love these kind of questions because
did
they always
she get hired because she's a woman?
It's presented as a dichotomy, right? So it's like you know, like you cannot fill a position with a woman because they are worse than male by default. I mean, really, it's like, is it really having quota is gonna lower the quality of the person that you are hiring? I mean, by asking this question, you are supposing that there are no women with the capability of fulfill that job. And that's, from my point of view, not true. I mean, I have been working with brilliant women all my life. So, and for this specific question, I would also like to come back to the film that we watch, right? And there was a specific part where it was shown that women are perceived as being less qualified than men. So is the perception of this woman, it's lower qualified than the men because the woman is really lower qualified, or it's because it's perceived by the others as not having the capabilities? So this is a complex problem, right? So it seems like we women will always be perceived as not having the capabilities or not having the level, right? And how this will affect the women. I mean, I am higher because I'm good. And I don't think that I'm higher because I'm a woman. And if I am higher because I am a woman, I was better than all the other women, right? So yeah, it doesn't make me feel any worse. So yeah, I'm a little bit sick of these questions about, you know, you hire a woman and it's not, yeah, it has not the capabilities. I mean, yeah, I find this very paternalistic somehow too.
Yeah, thank you, Lara. I've posted in the chat a link to the research paper reporting the findings described in the film, where two blind study groups received the same CV, one with a female name and one with a male applicant, and the evaluation of the two identical CVs was completely different as a result of gender bias. There are more questions and a very active discussion here in the chat. I would just like to maybe go back to one of the very interesting, for me, very interesting points in the film, where we have this social science experiment where the female professor herself admits to not passing the gender bias test and having this hardwired or maybe soft-wired bias for certain keywords to fit with a man or a woman that takes just those few milliseconds more to remove. This is, of course, yeah, very, very difficult topic. Sophia has already shared her experience of writing a job advert that turned out to be slightly biased towards a more male audience. Can I maybe hear the experience of our other panelists? Elif or Laura, do you want to share something? Or Elif?
What I always think is that we have that bias because we don't know a world in which, you know, there's this total equality. So whatever we do until we get to that 50% of our scientific community is, I don't know if it is 50, they also talk about 30 to 70, you know, in the diversity. At least more than 30% of a community has to be from one group and 70 from the other. But we don't know how it is to be under women leadership. As I said, that if this woman leadership were emulating men, we still don't know what it is like to be actually very sensitive to women's issues. So I really think that, I think it was Sophia who said we need another 100 years to change the total culture. But it is difficult, and that's why we have to have more female people, but female who are really ready to act like being a female leader. I think Maria, one of the participants, is working also quite hard on training women to be, you know, better scientists and better managers and better leaders in the scientific community. So yeah, it is that what we just all these biases happen because we haven't seen anything else. And I have 3 daughters. I'm raising them. I say, you're gonna be, one of them wants to be an artist, sure. And you're going to be an architect, perhaps. The other one is going to be a scientist because she loves all kinds of facts and she wants to discover. And the young one, she just wants to disassemble things and she wants to build things and she's going to be an engineer. They don't even know actually what an engineer is, but the word is in everyday conversation that we read books, she's going to be an engineer, and the other one is a scientist, and there's an artist. There's this diversity that, you know, just the way we grow up, I think the languages that we use, the toys that we offer, or the movies that we watch, they all have an effect on how we can avoid this, I think, gender bias.
Thank you, Elif. Sophia, do you want to add something?
Yeah, maybe because it sounds so negative when I am talking about the cultural change that we need to wait 100 years. That is not what I have in mind, but I guess we need to realize that the problem is complex. That is not only changing the academic environment, by also changing actually the whole society. You need to change society, university, and your own groups. And I guess a year ago, there was a report published by our CBS statistic office when they showed the different future perspectives of high school students, pupils, and there was a significant difference about the future, which is sketched by girls and boys. So they think in a very, very young age already differently about the future, about the career, about the possibilities, if you will go further, that is also applicable and different future view by our students. Also in the same report of CBS, we see that the students think female and men differently about the future. So it is not only about changing a number of professors, of assistant professors at the university. It is really about the changing the culture. And I like the comment of Sam very, very much. I guess we need, everybody actually needs to understand that diversity gives us added value. We all become better and better. And it is not so easy to say what we need to do of course, maybe the examples, maybe different teaching materials, different teachers giving the lectures, everything helps. But it is very, very, very complex. And I was maybe also thinking about the, I guess, my first International Women Day at the Delft University. That was in '95. And I was asked to give my observation about the diversity and gender issue. That was the time that I was assistant professor here. And when I look at the presentation, I can give exactly the same presentation now in year 2021. Only a little bit the numbers are changed, but actually the whole subject is exactly the same. And for me, that is maybe now that the acceleration is bigger than in the past, and the awareness of needs to change is bigger, but we still are in the process of changing culture. So I will say we need to do a lot, and we need, I will say, in the first instance, to remove all obstacles maybe we created at the university, so that the women and others don't feel that they have the obstacle of the career path. That should be our primate goal, that the first step we need to do. And the rest, step by step, creating awareness and going in the good direction. But I am afraid it can't change in, very, very short notice. Because it is the change of the whole society is needed.
Thank you, Sophia. So there is another theme that is emerging from the chat messages about we need to encourage more girls to go into scientific topics already from high school. However, we also know from the figures that the percentage of female students at the undergraduate level is not as low as the percentage going up the pipeline. So I'm not disagreeing with that point, but it's not the only problem. There are problems also further down the line that maybe are not directly linked to that. And yes, I would like to hear Sam on this point.
It's great that you bring this up, because we're actually working on this currently with the Student Council. We've talked to communications about this, about the high school outreach. So TU Delft is very local in their high school outreach. They go to high schools that TU Delft already goes to, that a lot of people from that school go to TU Delft, and they don't go as much to, high schools in the countryside, high schools in what you would call bad neighborhoods, things like that, to get a more diverse student body. So that's something we're going to try to work on with communication and the executive board to bring that back, because they used to have that in the past. They used to have a specific person to a specific full-time equivalent to find more diverse student bodies. And I think that's a good step, again, to further diversify the student body that we have. Also, on the leaky pipeline statistic, I actually look, as employees, we have this website where we can see a lot of statistics about the division at TU Delft. And at TU Delft, at least from what I could see on the broad statistics, there isn't much of a leaky pipeline here. It seems that it really is very stable with the amount of women between bachelor's, master's, and PhD. And I was really surprised to hear that, because it's such a well-known phenomenon that happens. And therefore, I was wondering whether it just looks like that, and there is a very much a leaky pipeline, but also a large inflow, or whether TU Delft is actually handling this well. But I was really surprised to see that the numbers were so straightforward here.
Maybe David can comment on the numbers after PhD.
Actually, it's interesting. It's quite okay. It could be better, but 50% of the female PhD, say of the staff continuing with the postdoc, 50% are female and 50% are male. So it means if we can avoid the leaky pipeline over time, things will look better. But I mean, actually, what we'd like to see is maybe 70% female, right? 30% male to even make the shift stronger, but it's not negative. So in that sense, if you look at the step from, let's say, from PhD to joining the university, it's quite positive, actually. So I think we're doing a good job there in ensuring that our current PhDs have equal opportunity to pursue a career path in the university, regardless of the gender.
Elif?
It also occurred to me that I think it's a moment when you finish your PhD, you want to concentrate on your family, perhaps. So this timing of the things and your academic career path, I think, I mean, the timing of your personal life and your professional life, sometimes it collides, and very often women are discouraged to continue working full-time, or or do some very arduous work, because lack of care, childcare facilities, or facing difficulties in pregnancy, or looking after a family. So I think we could also look into this contextual factors, not just only being in the academia, but what also happens in the private and professional lives of women, and how we can support this. For example, NWO, they give 18 months extra for each female, or I think they also want to do it for fathers, but so you get an allowance of 1.5 years to compensate for the time that you may be away, you may have been away from scientific work. So such initiatives, I think, would also really help to keep women in the science and provide them equity, not equality, but equity, in a way that they get a good opportunity to excel in their career too.
I would like to add, Elif, that I strongly agree. And in my group, I have a situation that female PhD students can finish PhD on time because of delivery of the baby. And I was surprised to see that TU Delft doesn't have a policy to support them to give an extension. That can be done only by the group where the female students, the female candidates work. And I will also expect a kind of policy to support this type of situation. And that is quite normal that this can happen during the PhD research. So we need to have very, very clear policies for this. I agree with you.
I also want to include male colleagues that go through similar difficulties. So we should not just exclude them, because making a family is a group effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the ideas is also paternal leave. So if a woman gives birth, that maybe the husband can take time off and take care of the child, and that the mother can go back sooner to work, maybe.
Yeah. So there are many possibilities to be the best in class as a university to support this type of initiatives. And I guess when we will ask people in the chat, give some examples what can change, we will have a very, very huge list. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So David, you will see there are a few questions on gender pay gap in the chat. Maybe this is one of the figures that would be nice to have in this dashboard that is being developed, just a suggestion. There are some comments on more dimensions of diversity than just gender. So the film touched upon the challenges of intersectionality, so being a person of color and a woman in academia. Here we have 4 female faculty members who are also non-Dutch and working in the Dutch academic system. We can probably share some of the additional challenges of this situation. I'm really happy that the discussion that was triggered by this film has been so active and interactive, and time is already up. So I now need to prompt a final statement from all our panelists, and then give the mic back to Astrid and Vincent for closing remarks. So our dear panelists, the final question for you is, what does an equal or more equal future look like? for TU Delft, for our students, for our children? Sam.
Oh boy, I got to go first. No, I think most important for a more equal culture at TU Delft is that everybody feels at home here and feels the same way. So what you get a lot from the movie is that women in science feel that, sometimes get the feeling that they don't belong, or it's much harder for them to just do their science because they have to deal with other problems as well. And this goes for all diversity in all groups. And I think in the ideal situation, everybody can just do what they want to do without having to worry about any of this. And I think the key to that, as we discussed a couple times during this meeting as well, is education. Keep talking about this, keep teaching people about this, tell people about this, but also for people personally to keep an open mind. Don't feel attacked when you make a mistake on this. Everybody finds this difficult. Of course it is difficult, but be open to other people criticizing you for making a mistake in that, and try to see, how could I improve on this? What did I do wrong? And I think that's the key to having a more inclusive university.
Thank you, Sam. Laura.
I guess that the future of equality means that we will not be having these meetings in TU Delft because are not necessary. But what I dream is it's a moment where women don't feel judged for everything that they do. So I read into the chat that we maybe feel judged because people may believe that somehow they gave us a position to TU Delft because we were women. And at the same time, we were discussing about how women may be very mean or very masculine when they are climbing into their careers. When we are so little number of women, at some point we were discussing about the damage that women do within the group. So I perceive this not like the correct way to do it, because we are blaming women all the time, right? For being too masculine or, they are not enough. So for me, a future of equality is when women can be themselves and they don't feel judged by anything or any actions that they take with respect, related to their gender.
Thank you, Laura. Elif, can you go next?
For me, the future is so diverse that we are colorblind, we are gender blind, and we just see people for who they are and what they do, because that's the whole thing. We want to contribute to great science, and that's what we should be doing. And act on, in order to erase all of this discrimination, we should just act on basic universal needs. What's our motivation when we do something? Just really understand that that concept of that everyone is actually operating on those universal needs, and if we recognize that, we will not see color or ethnicity or gender, etc. So that's the kind of future that I hope to see.
Thank you, Elif. Sophia?
Maybe the same way as Laura said, that we don't need to have workshops and discussion about the diversity and so on, but I guess that will be very, very long future. And I will say for me that on the short notice, TU Delft will be really best in class. And I see a question from David asking me, David Ebbing, not Keyson, David Ebbing asking me, what does it mean being best in class? I will say being the best, for example, from all 3 or 4 technical universities. So have a very, very, very clear strategy how we would like to be better than others, about the numbers, about the culture, about an atmosphere. Think about this. I will say, if we will all together sit one weekend maybe with each other, we can define the ways to be best in class. Maybe not only between the technical universities in the Netherlands, by all universities. If we will have a very clear strategy, and that will be shared by our board of directors of board of university, we could be really be best in class, and that will change the university, will make us better, because we know that diversity contributes to the better results, but it will also change to some extent the society. So that is my dream, best in class.
Thank you very much. And finally, let's hear from our diversity officer what a more equal working and learning environment at TU Delft looks like.
Yeah, so I think we have a lot of work to do, and we're missing a lot of policy and things. So the first thing we need to do is to tackle, let's say, the more negative parts of diversity that are affecting the quality of our work and the work environment, and creating a more inclusive environment. And then shifting to a more, I hope that we can shift also in the future. I mean, the dream would be that we embrace diversity as something positive and recognize we are a diverse world and diverse cultures. It's not going to disappear. Of course, we share underlying universal values, but we are diverse, and there's a thing called culture and different views, also depending on gender and other aspects. Different religious backgrounds could also provide different perspectives, all on ethics and other things. So there's many, I think, really exciting things about diversity that we could be looking at, but we first need to tackle the tough issues that are really blocking us and get rid of this negative view and move forward. And I think we could really be best of class in embracing diversity in the future. That's my dream.
Thank you, David. And thank you also for opening up the discussion beyond just gender, which is a more obvious element, because 50% of the population are women, and because it's a visible difference between two groups of people, but there are many other dimensions of diversity, religion, ethnicity, and many other things that people don't even think about, like having to take care of a sick relative that can affect one's career in ways that other people don't experience. So with this uplifting and optimistic view on a more equal future for our workplace and for science in general, I give the floor back to Astrid and Vincent for some closing remarks. Thank you.
Wow, thanks everyone. Vincent checking in from the library again. Thank you to our panelists and moderator for such an inspiring discussion, and Astrid for collaborating with me to put forth this program. I just want to say that I think this is just one in the series. This is an ongoing event, and the library is committed to continuing such discussions and committed to the issues of diversity and equality on campus. And I wanted to encourage everyone to check out the two exhibitions that are online through the Heritage site, heritage.tudelft.nl. One is about the history of the freshwoman classes throughout the history of the university, and the other one's about some very inspiring research, contemporary faculty on campus and their inspiring stories to motivate and help decrease this leaky pipeline. So with that, I will turn it over to Astrid, and I wanted to thank everyone once again for being here today, and see you at more events.
Well, I also like to thank everybody, the panel members and Valeria, for moderating this nice event. And I agree with Vincent. I think this could be a nice starting point for follow-up events. But anyway, I would also like to use 1 minute to bring to attention our pandemic networking event the coming Monday for female scientists who are new to TU Delft. And also, look on the Davis website for more trainings and events. And I also would really like to bring to the attention our mentoring program. So if you are looking for a mentor, or if you would like a mentor, please contact us. And thank you everybody for joining. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.